Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingman Podcast by Eastman's. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Wingman Podcast. Thank you for joining us. And tonight I've got a special treat. I've got Hugh Clark. Pardon me. I have Hugh Clark with me this evening. Hugh is works at Alaska Outdoors Television. He's president of the Alaska Waterfowl Association, among many other things, a man of many talents. Hugh, you were just down here last week, and we tried to do this here when you were in Montana.
Right.
It didn't work out due to, on my part, I would say technical difficulties, but it was just knocking a couple elk down right before we're scheduled to do this. And you were kind enough to say, dude, I get it. Don't worry about it. Go get your elk. Take care of it.
Right.
So I appreciate your flexibility and jumping on with us this evening, man. Yeah. So became familiar with you via social media and the things that you do up there.
Right.
You're in Anchorage.
That's
and
correct.
Tell me a little bit about you, how you got up there, because anybody that's listening right now is going to go, that dude's not from Alaska.
No, he's not. No, I mean, originally I'm from Texas, and I joined the service. I spent 25 years in the military, going all over the country, all over the world, chasing bad guys and stuff. I was a medic, had a lot of fun doing that. I was down in San Antonio teaching down there at AMED Center in school, and we contacted DA one day. There was 5 of us, we were all senior instructors down there, and we contacted DA when they said they were going to start a 425 Brigade Combat Team up here in Alaska. It was going to be an airborne unit, and it'd been a few years since we jumped, and we said, why not go jump in some snow? It's got to be softer and landed on runways.
Yeah, no kidding.
So let's go to Alaska, So all 5 of us kind of got in touch with DA, and we got our orders cut, and we hit the road. I took 30 days to get up here. I took my time. I got to see some beautiful country, went through Yellowstone, as you mentioned earlier, stayed in Washington with a buddy. We just camped all those KOA campgrounds and took our time and got up here, and hit the highway coming up, and, got here like in September, I believe it was 2004. And man, I tell you, I love it. I love Alaska. My passion's waterfowl. It always has been. It's kind of difficult up here, but it was a dream to come to Alaska. My parents lived here back in the 70s. My little brother was born here. And, Dad always told me, as much as I was into hunting and the outdoors and fishing, he said, if you ever get to Alaska, you'll never leave. And I got up here in 2004 and I'm still here, was it?
Yeah, buddy.
18, 19 years later. So it's just always been, Alaska's got so much to offer. Not only the fishing everybody's familiar with, the big game hunting, the waterfowl, it's a smaller part of it. Obviously it's not like a lot of people were coming up here 10, 15 years ago. I'm very familiar with every outfitter in the state of Alaska, through Alaska Waterfowl Association. My network, it extends past Alaska down into the lower 48. I've got a lot of contacts. We deal with a lot of companies that help support Alaska Waterfowl Association sponsors and donors from all over the world and all over the lower 48. So we've got a really good network. We've got a lot of friends out there and a lot of people that support us and the association. But, a lot of the outfitters up here as well. And it just seems like, I've heard you talking on other podcasts and stuff, how the waterfowl industry has just exploded the last 10, 15 years. It's gotten out of control. And up here, we've seen more outfitters open, guiding businesses and stuff like that in the industry. And it's just booming. It's booming in the lower 48. It's growing up here. There's a lot of birds, obviously everybody comes up here to get the harlequin. There's only 2 places you can get it, Washington State and Alaska. It's a big thing. There's a few people come up here to try to grab some swans, up north in Nome and stuff like that. But the eiders, we've got the king eider, which is huge, obviously out on St. Paul Island.
Yep.
We've got the Pacific eider, which is probably the only place you can really grab those, out down around, Cold Bay and, down on the Aleutian chain. So it's got a very vast variety of waterfowl up here. And then we got your puddle ducks too, but everything's brown. All the birds are brown in September. They talk about you know, you can only shoot so many different species in the lower 48, you know, maybe a pintail here. I think California's 1 pintail a day. Up here, it's 8 or 10 or whatever,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's very hard with the whole, you know, with the waterfowl identification thing. You know, it's a big thing up here. Not a lot of people are versed in that, you know, and have the education behind it. You know, they see a duck that's got webbed feet and they shoot it, you know, and that's it. So
It's interesting you say that. We just had the opportunity to hunt with Ramsey Russell
yeah,
a week ago, I think it was now.
right.
And one of the things that we were talking about in the blind and we talked about on he had me on his podcast too, was the brown duck thing. The 8 ducks is 8 ducks.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, you go to Canada, 8 ducks is 8 ducks. You go to South America, 8 ducks is 8 ducks.
Sure.
It doesn't, there's none of this identification. Because it was funny because, as you know, because you were just here in Montana, we don't have a ton of birds yet. We have some. We definitely have shootable numbers, but we're not loaded up. It's warm.
No.
It's warm everywhere, and we're just not loaded up. Like, hopefully, we will be in a few weeks. And
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I was down there just 4 days ago. I mean, I got back. Was it Sunday night? You know, so I got back just night, but I was down there for 4 days, and I was in Cascade in that area hunting the Missouri River. And I got very fortunate. A buddy of mine lives there. He used to be a board member of Alaska Waterfowl Association here in Alaska. He retired. He was a teacher. He said, I'm moving back to Montana. And he moved back. And he told me last year, he said, you know, you need to put in for the swan tag. You know, I've always kind of been on the fence about the whole swan thing. And, you know, I decided of the North America 41 or whatever, you know, I never really thought about starting to pursue that. But over the years, when it kind of became a subject that people were talking about, I got to looking at the list. I started checking off the birds. I'm like, you know, I've only got about a handful left to get, you know, so let's give it a shot. And I put in for the swan tag, Todd, and I got drawn for it. You know, he sent me a text one morning, like 6:30 in the morning, ping on Messenger. And he's like, hey, brother, you know, congratulations, you got the tag. He goes, I've got like 8 buddies that put in for it, and there was only 2 that got it. So I said, well, hell, you know, I guess we're going to Montana. So we flew in, and, you know, literally within an hour of landing, we're surrounded by 15, 20 swans, trumpeters, the tundras, and it just didn't feel right that day. I said, let's just wait, you know, let's back out. Let's see what they do in the morning. And we got up, and next morning we went down to the marsh, and they were all sitting there sleeping. And, you know, I'm not going to walk up and sluice a swan, you know, so I wanted them to fly or something like that. You know, we had decoys and stuff. So we kind of bumped them out of there a little bit. And, one of them got up and started to come around to my left, you know, 25 yards, you know, pulled the Browning up, you know, the trigger's gold, and it folded, and that was it, you know, and it was, you know, it didn't go 20, but
that's awesome.
It was a great experience. It really was, you know, it was very humbling. Probably the only one I'll ever shoot, you know, to be honest with you, that's, I mean, I have no desire to shoot another one. It was kind of like the Emperor Goose, you know, up here, you know, when they started that, you know, huge successful conservation plan there.
Huge.
You know, we got that, and then we just, you know, we drove around, and as we were there, like you mentioned, it's been so warm, you know, up until the time I got down there. Frank was telling me, he said, Hugh, because I'm just not seeing the birds. Typically this time of year, you could drive down 15, and there's 5,000 birds in these barley fields, you know, left and right. You go out with 300-400 decoys, set them up, and you're done the first hour and a half of daylight. So, you know, we really struggled. But as we were there, I think the 3rd day we were there, we started seeing more birds. We found a field that had probably 300 to 400 in it. You know, we called the landowner, you know, we used that Onyx program, you know, that app, you know, which was pretty cool. And we called the landowner, and she was real nice, and she allowed us access to the property. And we went in and set up our decoys, you know, and we pulled half a dozen birds or so out of there. You know, it wasn't too bad of a shoot, but the mallards, you know, they're hammering those barley fields now. I mean, all those geese, you know, when you drive down those highways, that's all you see. It's just barley fields everywhere. It's beautiful country, man. I mean, it was some of the most gorgeous country I've ever seen. I've been all over the place. Kansas kind of reminded me a lot of Kansas.
Sure.
You know, I was stationed there for about 12 years, and it was like the waterfowl central place to be. I mean, it seemed like every bird from Canada just funneled down through Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, you know, as you're aware, you know, on that central flyway. But it really reminded me a lot of that. But we didn't see, I mean, I bet I didn't see one other bird. I think we shot a widgeon one day. That's the only other species I saw besides mallards, you know. And it got to the point to where we started calling them M&Ms, man. These Montana mallards, we hate them. Let's just go kill them today, you know. And Frank would wake up in the morning and say, guys, let's go get some M&Ms. And I'd be like, all right, brother, let's go. But we had a great time doing that. A lot of fun, hunted them for 3 days. And then we came back and, you know, it was like minus 14 when I left here and I got down there and it was 40, you know, so we're in,
Yeah,
you know, staying nice and warm. And then we get back up here. And of course, it's like minus 15 again, you know, so all the birds are gone. Everything's gone here. You know, there's still guys down on the Aleutian chain hunting birds. I've got a friend that's coming in soon, you know, and, you know, she's got a tag to go down and get an emperor down there, you know, and they're still pulling birds out of there, you know, but that's a whole nother area to talk about, man. But as far as Alaska goes, there's just, it's so much of a variety from southeast Alaska down by Juneau, Ketchikan, Sitka. You know, we've hunted all those areas all the way around down to the Aleutian chain, you know, and it's just such a large variety of birds. And as far as opportunity goes, you know, guys in the lower 48 that want to come up here, man, you know, I mean, I get hit up all the time, obviously with the association and with the TV show as well. And, you know, people send me emails or messenger or text or whatever, you know, and they've got a lot of questions about it. You know, when you're sitting in the lower 48 and on your couch and your recliner and, you know, you're watching these shows on TV, you know, and you want to come to Alaska, you want to get your Harlequin, you want to go shoot Pacific Black brand, or you get drawn for the emperor tag. There's, you know, there's 3 or 4 outfitters that specifically guide for that bird, and they'll hit me up, you know, and they'll kind of do a little Q&A, you know, and try to feel it out, you know, and we don't hold any punches. I mean, you know, all the outfitters up here are respectable and stuff, you know, but some of them do things a little differently, you know, that might cater to that guy's style of hunting or his personality or whatever, you know. So we try to link them up with the right people for the job. And, you know, so far we've had a lot of fun with that.
I would imagine that hooking people up with the right outfitter, or the logistics of hunting waterfowl in Alaska have got to be insane at times. You know, I think about, you know, you're not just going to go out and plop on a rock and shoot a king eider. Right. You know, that's an adventure in itself. Getting there is an adventure in itself. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And then hunting the bird is a whole other ball of wax. You know, I think about some of the big inland marshes that you guys have, and you don't just drive up, park, and go hunt. There's more to it than that. And for guys from the lower 48 that want that experience, having a connection like Alaska Waterfowlers is priceless.
It is. It really is. You know, we get guys that, you know, will reach out and, you know, they'll say, hey, you know, I want to come to Alaska. I would like to grab a Barrows, you know, Goldeneye. You know, I'd like to get a chance at a Harlequin. And then I would like to get a chance at a Pacific Eider. Well, that kind of changes things right there. You know, they can't wrap their head around, I'm not going to shoot a Pacific Eider where I could shoot a Barrows and a Harlequin, you know, so I might have to make 2 trips. Now there is, you know, we've got Kodiak, for instance. Kodiak has a small colony of Pacifics over there, maybe 60 to 80 birds, might be a little bit more than that. And they've got Barrows and they've got Harlequins, you know, and there's a couple of outfitters over there. But the number of birds and the opportunity, if you're going to spend the money and the time, you know, to focus on those certain species, you need to go with somebody who, you know, you got a 99.9% chance of getting that bird. You know, I mean, I can't control your gun, I can't control your trigger pull, but I can give you the opportunity, you know, that's going to make you successful if you can succeed. So that's what a lot of it boils down to. That and budget, man. I mean, you know, when people contact us and they're like, look, you know, I want to come up and shoot a Harlequin, you know, well, what kind of an experience do you want? You know, do you want to spend $5,000 for a week? Or are you talking $250 a day, you know?
Right.
I mean, you know, for 2 days, you know, so that's kind of the first thing I throw at them. And, you know, we'll get to talking about it. You know, we've got guys that, you know, I've got buddies out of Whittier that guide, you know, they've got live aboard boats. They've got guys down in Homer where you can stay in a hotel and $250, $300 a day, you know, he'll take you out in the skiff. We got guys down in Ketchikan, you know, and then we've got, you know, a lot of friends and a lot of guides down the Aleutian chain, you know, Coal Bay, just a phenomenal place. I think if you're a waterfowler in North America, you need to experience either, you know, St. Paul Island is a pinnacle, obviously, because of the king eider, but Coal Bay is a place that I think it's often overlooked. You know, you hear a lot of people talk about, you know, for the Pacific Black brand, people run to, you know, they run to California, you know, you might pick up a few along the, you know, the Pacific Flyway, but if you want to see numbers that will blow your mind. You know, they got the largest eelgrass bed in the world, the Eisenbeck Lagoon. And I've been going there for 5 years straight. There's a buddy of, I've got 8 buddies, and we call ourselves the Brant Brigade. It's kind of funny, but you know, we all go down there every year and we have a blast, man. I mean, you know, 8 solid guys. Everybody brings something to the table. Everybody contributes. We take a couple of dogs and we go down there and just rent the old beaters with a heater. You know, we shove it full of decoys. We go out, we walk, we set up, you know, we ship Zodiacs, we ship motors, but there's like 4 or 5 outfitters in that area as well that provide quality experiences for the guys who want to take the time and want to go down there and shoot Pacific Black Brant. You know, you got 4 subspecies of cacklers down there, you know, so you're able to get those as well. You got the Taverners, the Lessers, the Richardsons, and the Aleutians down there. And that's a really neat experience too, if you're trying to chase a subspecies, you know. So it's just, it provides, and you've got a lot of birds, a lot of ducks down there as well. You know, people go down and chase the Aleutian green-winged teal. You've got the widgeon down there as well, you know, but there's just a lot of really neat things down there, you know. And then you got ADAC, for instance. You know, we've got some buddies down there in ADAC that guide as well, you know. And the birds, as the birds migrate down the Aleutian chain, you know, they're the next stop, you know. So you've just got people scattered all over the place. And if anybody's got any, you know, if anybody's got any questions, man, I always tell them, you know, reach out to me. You know, we'll do a quick Q&A. I can help you kind of narrow it down to maybe a region in Alaska that you're interested in, or maybe even a specific guy, you know. But it's, you know, if I'm able to help those guys out with the knowledge that I have and save them money and save them time, and, you know, from doing their own due diligence, and that's what it's all about, brother. You know, it's like me trying to go to Arkansas. You know, I mean, if I've got a buddy in Arkansas or somebody that's willing to help me out, you know, and provide me with some information versus going with a shady outfitter or somebody that's reputable, you know, I'm going to take that time and I'm going to do my due diligence to try to reach out to those guys. And that's what it's all about in the waterfowl community. You know, the network is so big right now throughout the lower 48, and you've got a lot of people, not to say anything bad about them, you know, Todd, but I mean, no, you know, as well as me, there's people, everybody and their mother's trying to rent grandma's field, you know, and be a guide, you know, and it's just really tough. It is, you know, for a lot of the guys that are trying to provide a reputable business and do the right thing and build, you know, their business up. And you've got guys that are kind of, you know, sneaking in from the left and the right, you know, not that they're not trying hard as well, but still it's
no,
tough.
I agree. And I think having someone like you that provides that service to just be like, you know,
Yeah.
this is what you say you're looking for. This is who you want to go with. This is,
Yeah,
you know, we vetted these guys. This is where you want to be.
And that's not even really what the organization's about. I mean,
right.
Alaska,
Right. So,
yeah,
so
I mean,
fill us
you know,
in
that's
more
just
on
me.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. And I wanted to get into that, Hugh, about because when you go to the AWA website and you look, you guys have habitat projects going on. You've got, it's like a community, like you said. So
it really is. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
You know, I was sitting over in Korea, and, you know, before I left, I was here, you know, I was up here, and I decided to go back to Korea for a couple of years, you know, before I retired. And when I was here, me and a friend of mine, he was an old timer, he's a really nice guy. And we had talked about starting a nonprofit here in Alaska, and we was going to call it Alaska Duck Hunters Association, you know, or something like that. And then, you know, we got to looking for names, and I came across, you know, it was called Alaska Waterfowl Association, this old 1980s website, generic, 3 pages. That was it. You know, this is who we are. Here's the second page. Click on that. Third page. That was it. And I was sitting in Korea. So I reached out to the, you know, to the president at the time. And, you know, he was a nice guy, you know, he was a younger guy. And I reached out to him, and I contacted him, you know, and see kind of what the organization was about, you know. And me and my buddy were kind of motivated, you know, to maybe, you know, get in somehow and see what we could do to help with it, you know, because we just felt like, you know, at the same time, we wanted to help promote waterfowl hunting in Alaska, but at the same time, help with maybe some conservation projects with Fish and Game. Alaska Fish and Game here is an amazing organization. I know a lot of people in there, and a lot of them are motivated, especially around waterfowl. You know, it's just not the moose, it's not the bears, the sheep, the goats. It was waterfowl, and it had a history, you know, a really nice history on it, as far going all the way back to the oil days, you know, here in Alaska, and the battles they used to have with the oil fields out here. And some of the original owners some of the original founders were part of Ducks Unlimited at the time, but they felt like at the time, nothing against Ducks Unlimited, but they felt like at the time Ducks Unlimited wasn't taking the right stance against the oil companies here in Alaska. So they decided, these three guys decided to break off and form Alaska Waterfowl Association. And their goal, just right over here across the Cook Inlet, was to help secure 425,000 acres over here of wetlands to prevent the guys from coming in there and drilling natural gas. And that's what they did. These three guys petitioned, they got out, they knocked on doors, they were shaking hands and kissing babies and made things happen. And they got the money. They secured 425,000 acres over here on the other side of Cook Inlet, which is over by the Susitna Flats. And it just kind of started from there. And that turned into a refuge. And then they helped, work some deals with the Palmer Hay Flats out here, which is another, marshy area out here, that we hunt. And that's, I'll talk about it later, getting back to public hunting, but that's kind of where AWA went. And then there really wasn't much else going on after that. For years and years and years, it was just a good old boys club. And they would have a banquet every year, 50, 60 people. They would come in and get together, and have a party and, drum up a little bit of money, and maybe give a little bit of money to, to some of these youth shooting organizations here in Alaska that we've got. So getting back, me and my buddy started talking to the current president. And I said, I'm going to be ending my tour here pretty soon. I'm going to be coming back to Alaska. Would you be interested in me taking it over, as president? He said, man, I'll be happy to do that. We haven't done anything with it really in the last 3 or 4 years. If that's something you're really interested in doing, then, we can put together a meeting. I'll raise my hand. I'll make a motion that you're going to be the next president. And that was it. It was going to be that simple. So we had a meeting, and I had my buddy Frank, and we had some other guys with us, and we walked in there, and they had their original, now these are guys that's been a part of this organization for 30 or 40 years. This is something that they really held near and dear to their hearts. And, and we talked a lot about it prior to the meeting and even at the meeting. And their stance was, we don't have any problem with some more motivation, with some more ideas. And I gave them my vision. I gave them my vision, my views. And I said, this is where I would like to see AWA go. I think we can grow it. I think there's momentum here. We just got to do some education, and we've got to do some reach out. And we sat down at the table, and within 30 minutes, I was the president. I had 3 board members. They kept 4 board members, just to kind of balance it out. And that's how it went. And eventually, over the years, people came and went as far as board members go, or project managers or whatever. And now we've got to where we've got, like, I believe it's 10 people, to include myself in the board of directors and the treasurer and the projects manager. It's just been awesome, man. It really has. We've got some really neat people. Got a great secretary. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I'm at. She keeps me tied up, text and emails and everything else. And, she's really great, but we've done a lot. Our main thing, outside of working with, Alaska Fish and Game on some smaller projects out on the Hay Flats. We did a bird banding project with them a few years ago. That was great. We got some youth out there and did that. But mainly it's just been after the banquets, we have a certain amount of time, like any NGO, we've got to give some money back, So we try to do then every summer, we donate funds to these youth shooting organizations. There's a handful of them here in Alaska that hit us up every year. And lately it's been for ammo, man. And as well as me, ammo is so hard to find right now that it's been really tough. I was just talking to a lady last week that sent me an email, and she was looking for some funds. And I said, we'll take it before the board, but right now they just can't find ammo. Some of these big companies like Midwest USA, those guys used to donate tons of ammo to these youth shooting organizations. They're having trouble getting it. And I just, it's been really tough. But, this year our project was, one of the old board members reached out to me about 4 months ago. And he said, Hugh, down in Cold Bay, we've got a pier. I don't know if you've ever seen that pier out in Cold Bay. It's probably half a mile. There's a pier that goes out into the Pacific Ocean, man, out into the bay. It's like half a mile long. And it's got this huge pier out there. And that's where the barge comes in and offloads everything. So they were talking about, there's no fish cleaning station and there's no bird cleaning station. Everybody takes everything back to the house, or back to the lodge to skin them out. And they said, let's prefab a shack here at one of the local lumber yards. and let's load it up and let's see if we can get that part of it donated, get the barge part of it donated. We got a real good deal on the lumber. As you know, lumber went through the roof last year with COVID.
Oh man. Yeah.
I think it was 2x4s, normally $3. It was selling for 12 or 20, it was crazy. So when the prices came down, we got a really good deal, and we had it prefabbed. And the native, there was a native organization that was going to do their barge runs out to all these villages and stuff. And they actually donated the shipping of it out to Cold Bay. So we had the prefab, I think it's 16x16. It's going to be enclosed, and we're going to put it out on the end of that pier, and donate to the community, donate it for the guides, the outfitters, anybody that's passing through there to utilize to help, clean birds. Cause that wind's cranking 50, 60 miles out there. It's cold, feathers flying everywhere, so it just gives somebody a nice place to be able to get inside. That's kind of what we did this year, besides helping the youth shooting organizations. And there's some other projects that we're going to look at working on in the future with Fish and Game. But it's just a band of brothers, man. Be honest with you. Our banquets every April. We start about right now hitting up, companies and organizations around the United States that's always helped us out. Sitka and Drake and all these guys have always been great. Vortex, they're always helping us out with stuff. And then we've got our local companies here in Alaska. But every April we have the banquet. We've kept it anywhere from 175. I think we had like 220 one year, We've talked about bumping it up, but that's a steady number. That number works for us every year. We've looked at bigger venues, obviously, with bigger venues and more food, there's more money. But, every year we've made more money with these banquets. So it's been a blessing. It has, and it's really helped us out a lot. The support that we get, everybody looks forward to our banquets. It's family friendly. A lot of kids come, we're always doing stuff for the youth as well, so it's just a great time, man. It really is.
That sounds super cool. That's, I think that those grassroots, boots on the ground, local conservation organizations, and like you said, nothing against Ducks Unlimited.
Yeah, absolutely.
Delta, they all, we need them all. Absolutely. But there's things that you can do when you see a local need. It can be difficult to navigate all those levels to get the help that you want or that you need, where you see a project that could be done.
It's really neat. There was a few years ago, there's a young shooter. There was a female, and she was an Olympic shooter from Alaska. You just don't get too many of those. And
no kidding.
Man, she was a pistol. She was a hell of a shot with a shotgun, and her goal was to shoot on the Olympic team. That was her goal, and she had to qualify. So she, came forward as a 17-year-old girl, came forward, had a resume, wrote everything out, showed her pre-qualifications and everything. And there was a lot of people supporting her, but this girl had her head screwed on straight, and she came forward, and she asked for funding, and we sat down and we gave her some money, and we said, look, we're going to support, if that's your dream, if that's your passion, that involves a shooting sport, and we're going to do what we can do to help. And for 4 years, man, we helped her get all the way up to where she was shooting at the Olympics. And that's
awesome.
It was a lot of fun. And now she's doing her own thing, but COVID kind of shut some things down last year, and she still got some ambition. But now she's out there mentoring other girls, and other kids, to do the same thing. And that's what it's all about, because just like hunting, the shooting sport, it's a dying breed, with the way, things are headed now in the country and the world. If we don't help support these kids and, and help support the youth and get them outdoors and show them what it's all about, brother, we're going to lose it. That's the bottom line,
and get them hooked early, when they're kids. I know you have a set of twins.
Yeah, girls 15.
Oh buddy. And I have two little
Daily
girls. I bet.
Yeah.
I have two little girls and a little boy, and mine are young. Mine are 6 and 4 and 1.
Right.
And getting those kids in the duck blind, in the goose blind, getting them out, and so they can see it. They look forward every time I come home. If they don't get to go, they're like, Daddy, let me see the birds. Daddy, where's the birds? And they're constantly, they're into it. And they love it, so perpetuating that beyond the hard part is perpetuating that outside of your immediate family.
Absolutely.
You know, and seeing where there's opportunity outside of that, that's tough. That's tough.
It is tough, you know, and that's something that, you know, that I remember years ago when we first got really involved with AWA, you know, AWA and Ducks Unlimited put on a little youth, it was called like a little youth duck camp. You know, it was held down at one of the local gun ranges, and we would go down there for a day, and we'd have 6 or 8 stations, you know, how to blow a duck call, and here's your decoy spreads. Now let's go over and shoot some trap. And it was a lot of fun. You know, we get a dozen kids, maybe 20 kids would show up. And then, you know, we kind of got away from that. And that's something that I would like still, before I ever relinquish, you know, the president of AWA. That's one of the visions that I have. That's something that me and some of the other guys have. You know, we would love to set up like a week-long duck camp or something, you know, something up here in Alaska to help get the kids out there, and let's go through different phases. And let's, you know, we can't really do the youth waterfowl hunt because our season is probably one of the longest in the United States up here. You know, it starts September the 1st and goes all the way into January sometimes, you know, in different regions. But it's, I mean, you know, we can take kids out and do that. You know, we take kids out the first couple of weekends of September. It's nice. It's warm. I've been dragging my twins out to duck camp, man, since they were 4 years old. You know, we let them go play in the mud. You know, they sleep in the tent, they get up, they'll get in the boat and ride out there. And then we would come back, and they just loved it. You know, they're ripping the hearts out of them, you know, and helping to clean them and everything else. And they just having a great time with it. And then over the years, it got to the point to where, Dad, I'm not going this year, you know? And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. What are you talking about? You know, we've been doing this since you were 4. And they're like, well, you know, it's just not an interest right now, you know? So I've got one, it's really weird, the dynamics. I've got one that's, you know, she's turned into a beautiful young lady, and she, you know, her passion is theater. Her passion is shopping. Her passion's, you know, that more feminine style side. And then the other one is like, Dad, let's go kill some ducks, you know, and she's kind of more tomboyish, you know, so she's the one that I usually end up traveling around Alaska with and taking hunting. Really neat experience, man. I mean, it's awesome to be able to share it, maybe not with both, but at least there's one that kind of wants to show some interest and get into it. You know, last year, I think it was last year, the year before. No, it was last year. She wanted to go with me. I was going over to Sitka, Alaska to hunt with a friend of mine that lives over there. And, you know, he invited us out, and I took her, and we went out there for 4 days, and she shot her first bird. You know, her first bird was an old squaw, a longtail. That's you know, cool. It took me 40 years to get an old squaw, you know, and that was her first bird. And I was like, you have no idea what your dad went through to get that bird. And here you are, first bird you kill. And then her next bird on the wing was a surf scoter, you know, and it was just a great experience, you know, great as a father, obviously, you know, to see her do that and to see the smile and all that. It was great, but just an overall great experience. We shot a couple of deer, had a fantastic time. But, you know, the dads out there and the moms, you know, whoever it is, you know, you can't express enough that you've got to take the time to get them out there. You know, you've got to set that time away on the case. Busy as our schedules are, you know that, you know, we want to travel, you know, we want to go hunt birds in different states and different regions of the world or whatever, but take a couple of weekends every year, you know, maybe 2 or 3 weekends, and just dedicate it and say, look, if I've got a child that's interested in that, or if I know my neighbor's kid's interested in that, I'm going to take them out, you know, because that's what's important. I want to get them out there, introduce them to the sport. If you can set that seed, man, and get it going, it might grow into something, might turn into something. On the flip side, it might not, you know, but at least the effort was applied. And that's
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's kind of funny. We maintain a couple little properties here. And you know, people been hunting them for a long time. And sure. And so I get phone calls. Hey, you know, I was hoping my kid and I, or, you know, my kid and his brother, and it's like, just go. Yeah. Absolutely. You guys know where the blinds are. They're full of decoys. Use what's there. Just put it back when you're done. Have a good time. You know, if we're going to be down there, jump in, come on along, jump in. Some of those days, even if you don't get into the birds great, you're still having a great time.
Dude, that's what it's all about, man. The camaraderie. I could talk all day about the camaraderie shared in the blind time, man. It's funny you mentioned that. We are in Montana, Todd, last week, we're sitting on the Missouri River tucked in. We probably got 1,000 mallards flying over us over the last hour, you know, a mile high. You know, they're migrators, you know, they're coming out of the barley fields. Well, the day before, about an hour before shooting time stopped, they were turning back around, they were dumping into the river. You know, we were about a mile and a half down the river, and we saw them doing it, you know, the day before. So we go down there to set up. You know, we're set up in the right spot, right time. And we're on the Missouri River, man, in the middle of nowhere. And all of a sudden we hear something behind us walking up, you know, and naturally as waterfowl hunters, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Game warden, you know, here he's coming up to check on us or say it was funny. We turn around and here's this guy with these 2 dogs that's walked probably 2 miles from his house to come to that exact same location. And, you know, what's the first thing we do? You know, we introduce ourselves, brother, grab a seat, you know, don't know this guy from Adam, but grab a seat. Here's what the birds are doing. Here's how the spread's set up, you know, and let's kill some birds together, you know? And I mean, you know, when does that happen? You know, I mean, it's crazy, but it was just awesome to be able to meet somebody else that shares the same passion as we do. Never met the guy before in our life, sat down, shook his hand. Within 10 minutes, we're best friends.
Yeah.
You know, we're out there shooting M&Ms all day long. It was funny.
No, and that's cool, man. I had a similar experience a couple of years ago. Went down to a spot that I'd hunted pretty regularly on and off, and
Right.
it was always great. It was always great. And a new fella bought the neighboring property and set up a blind, and here he comes a little bit before shooting light with his little boy. And I mean little boy. This is a little boy. And it's like, dude, don't set up there. Just we're set up. Just come on down here and jump in with us, you know? And it's just those kind of opportunities don't happen all the time. But when you're going to be competing, you know, if you get to a spot hunting public, for example,
man, don't even get me started on that.
Hunting public, it's like if you're hunting a public spot, and I'm not talking public like Arkansas public, you know, because the ability to have guys jump in with you in those situations, I've not been there, I've not done it, but I can only imagine that may not be an ideal situation, you know. But some of these other public spots, a lot of the public that we hunt is small, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's how it is for us. Yeah. I mean, you know, we've got an area out there on the Palmer Hay Flats, and there's multiple places out there to go. But to get to this one spot, you've got to have a boat. You know, you mentioned logistics in Alaska. You know, I mean, you can get out there and walk in that muskeg is, you know, you're going to make it 150 yards and you're going to find a place to sit down and you're going to be done. But if you've got a boat and you can get to this place, you know, then you've got to do some other things to get into the lake. But once you get into the lake, it's an amazing delta, man. It's some of the most beautiful country. I've got pictures on my social media and stuff of it. It's just an incredible backdrop with mountains in the background. And, you know, it can be some great shoots, and, you know, a lot of people take it for granted, but the backdrop and the people out there are really good. But then you get to the point over the years when I first started hunting out there, you know, I was the first person in Alaska to have a Four Rivers eBads. You know, when I retired from the military, I said, I'm buying a Four Rivers eBads. I'm going to contact Tom because I know him. I'm going to tell him I want one. We're going to ship it to Alaska. I don't care what it costs. And then I said, I want to put a copperhead on it, and I'm going to have the baddest little duck hunting rig up here. And sure enough, we did. And then a year later, my buddy bought the same rig, and we owned that lake at that time. I mean, it was crazy, but there was guys that had been hunting that lake, Todd, for 20 or 30 years before us. So now we show up out there with these new modernized, you know, duck hunting rigs, and they're out there with their little, you know, rowing kayaks or their little hand-built wooden canoes, and, you know, more of a traditionalist aspect of it, if you will. And, you know, even though we felt like we were doing the greatest thing in the world, but to these guys, you know, and these guys took the time, and over time we got to meet them and talk to them, and they were just an amazing individuals, and to hear the stories and to hear how to, you know, that area had evolved and the waterfowl hunting. And we felt like, you know, the more technology grows, the more this industry grows, the more, I mean, look at the companies with layout boats, man. I mean, it's crazy. Everybody and their mother's kicking out 10, 12-foot aluminum boats or fiberglass, and you slap a PPF on it or copperhead, and there's nowhere you can't go. If the boat floats, it'll go, you know? So, you know, you take something where you have to work really hard to get to a specific area over the years, and now it's nothing. 15 minutes, we're in the lake from where we launch. And before, people were kayaking or canoeing 6 miles down there to get there, dedication. So there's so many different levels of commitment. And then let's don't even get into the whole social media part of Scout and all that. I mean, it just gets crazy, but that's a whole nother subject for another day. But getting back to the lake and the area that we hunted, we saw so many different people on different levels coming in. And when it really started growing, we got a lot of people out there that didn't have the experience with calling, didn't have the experience with decoy spreads, didn't have the experience with camouflage or cover, didn't understand the basic concepts with duck hunting. So we're sitting out in the blind one day, we've got these nice little boats and we're covered up, and these guys come walking in, trudging in, 4 or 5 decoys around their backs, and they're only 150 yards from us. Well, that's too close, I mean, you just can't make that happen. So we just holler them and say, hey, come on over, bring your decoys over here. I've got room in my boat for another guy. My buddy does as well. Let's mix your decoys with ours, and let's take the opportunity to teach these guys a little bit more about what the sport is, the calls, the different types of calls to use and different types of times to use them, and the different birds and bird identification. We don't want to choke them with it, but at the same time, just slowly introduce it to them. And over time it helps. And then we ended up seeing over a period of time where we hunt that as it grew, more people, and then, the involvement with AWA, it got to the point to where, well, maybe what we're doing, promoting the sport and getting the brotherhood and all that, we started having so many people show up. We started having these big camps. We started having these big groups. It was great camaraderie, but at the same time, that specific area could only hold so many people, to where the birds started getting pushed out and got overpressured. So, you're going to have that with any compound. I mean, there's places in Tennessee, Reelfoot Lake, you go down south, you could be hunting Baffin Bay down by Corpus Christi. And if you just get too many people in that area, it just pushes the birds out, So, when you get to public hunting, you've only got so many areas that you can put so much pressure on, and the birds are going to go, and everybody starts complaining. Everybody's like, well, the birds aren't here. No, the birds are here. They're just in a different area, because we got too many people here. And in Alaska, logistic wise, we were talking about it earlier, it's like when this marsh freezes up, usually our season, it starts September the 1st. By the time you get to the 3rd week of October, these marshes start locking up. By 1 November, you're not putting a boat in anywhere except for the river or the salt. And the birds will push to the river, and we'll go hunt the rivers, and then we'll end up turning to the salt, and we get out there, and you get in those estuaries, and you can still get some good puddle duck shoots, and we start shooting a lot of golden eyes, and then we start chasing the sea ducks. And then once that's come around probably the 2nd week of December, and even those birds start pushing out, and our season starts shutting down. So it's just a continuous transition, like anywhere else, like in Canada. I was in Montana the other day, and I have a buddy up in Saskatchewan, and he's friggin' banging birds out of the field left and right. And I'm like, man, what the heck are they still doing up there?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's, that happens to us. It seems like every year, the last few years, especially, it's like having to go to Montana because it's warm, and the birds are up there on the Missouri. They're up there on the Yellowstone. Right. They don't have to leave, but
no, not at all.
It's interesting what you say about, it's a double-edged sword.
It really is.
With getting people involved and that pressure that comes with that, because the only way we continue to propagate this sport is through recruitment. We talked about that earlier with hunter recruitment.
Yeah.
But it is a tough thing, because with hunter recruitment comes added pressure to the resource. Ultimately, if we don't have that hunter recruitment, then we don't have people getting passionate about protecting birds, conserving habitat.
Yeah.
And not just organizations, but the birds and the birds themselves. Absolutely. And the habitat that they need. And so I don't know, man, it's going to be interesting the next few years, I think, to see, are we reaching critical mass within the industry? Are we reaching critical mass within the sport with the number of people wanting to hunt ducks, waterfowl, and the availability of hunting spots and birds themselves? It's going to be interesting to see, because I think when we hit that tipping point and hunting success starts to suffer, you're going to see guys pull away. You're going to see guys.
Well, I'm already seeing guys pull away. I mean, I've got a good friend of mine that hunted this specific area, Todd, for 20 years. And when it got to the point where a certain amount of people started showing up, and I hunted with this guy, man, for years. We shared the same boat together. We killed a lot of different birds out there. We just had some awesome experiences together. But it eventually, he just stopped going. It'd come opening weekend. I'm like, where you at, brother? And he's like, man, I'm not going. I'm just, I'm gonna go chase moose here in a couple of weeks or something like that. And that's the other thing too. And that's one good thing that we have seen is that, no matter where you go, opening weekend of waterfowl season is just insane. I don't care what state you're in. I don't care where you're at. But up here, with the way moose season opens up and sheep season opens up, and these, all these different seasons are kind of staggered. You get a big push at the beginning of the season, but then by the second or third week of September, people are out chasing meat for the freezer, and they pull away from the waterfowl, and then it kind of gives us a little bit more, room to move around. So it kind of balances itself out. And I've seen over the years, over the last 15, 20 years, the military as well. There's a huge base right here. And you get a lot of soldiers that come through in PCS. And it just seems like over the years, you'll have a lot of waterfowlers in here, where people will come in, and they'll do anything from Arkansas, Louisiana, wherever they're from, diehards. And they want to hunt the birds, and they'll hunt every freaking day if they can. But then, over time, those guys leave, so we see a flex, if you will, of people kind of hitting it hard one year, and the next year might be a little light. But I think it's that way anywhere you go. But
it is
here, with a small amount of public hunting that we have, it's more identifiable than it is, say, if I was hunting a reservoir of 50,000 acres,
No, I agree. And we're the exact opposite of you guys, because our big game seasons, it's a flip-flop. Where big game seasons are September and October for the most part. There's some November opportunity, but by the time we get really good numbers of birds, big game seasons are over. So guys have done the big game thing, and if they're still hunting, that focus is on waterfowl. And so it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to see when it's all said and done. And I don't want to be doom and gloom. That's not the whole point, because we need those hunters.
Got to recruit them, man.
Absolutely.
Get out there, if we stop taking kids and we start introducing people to the sport, even adults, if there's a friend or somebody that's interested in going, get their license, get their tags, take them out, shoot some rounds, and then, take them out. I've taken so many people out waterfowl hunting, and, over the years, and some of them will be, I took this one guy, man, and, he wanted to go so bad. It was when I was in the military, and he was in my unit, and I took him out, never been before, loaned him the Drake jacket, loaned him the waders, gave him the gun. Guy didn't have any of this stuff, right? He was a lieutenant, he was in my unit. He was a really neat guy, but, you all know him, you all meet him. And, we take this guy out, put him in the boat. Well, that day, it was just incredible. Wind's cranking 30 miles an hour. Everybody knows the birds are just insane when the wind's going, they're always moving. We shot a 3-man limit, 45 minutes, we're done. I go to pick that guy up at the house the next morning, Todd. He's got a brand new shotgun, brand new waders, brand new, great jacket. This was back before Sitka and all that stuff. Brand new jacket, waders, you name it, a case of shells. Let's go. He's got all the new gear ready to go. It was the funniest thing you ever seen. And, still got tags on it and stuff, so we get him out there in the marsh, had a great time, great shoot, but it stuck with him. And to this day, no matter where he's traveled in the military, we continue to talk. We continue to share the experiences of that area that he's in and the waterfowl that he's shooting. And that passion stuck with him that first time. And then on the flip side, I've taken people out, and they said, hey, it was a great experience, but this is not for me,
Right.
I
Right.
mean, I'm not into the birds.
Yep.
You can take them home, you can eat them, because I'm not going to. And, I mean, to each his own. But, if you're going to get, people that are interested in it, by all means, at least try. You know what I'm saying? Don't give up, and what you were talking about a while ago with the way it could explode, or what the dynamics of it are. When you were talking to Ramsey a couple of weeks ago, he had a lot of, some really excellent insight, and what he put on that point. And that makes a lot of sense. And, we see, no matter what part of the country you're in, it's there's just a lot of things are changing, in the industry and the sport, and it's blown up so much. When I was in Kansas in the early 90s, the waterfowl limit was 2 birds. That was it. Really, 2 mallards. That was it.
Wow.
And, that was in 93, 92. And, we didn't even have neoprene waders. I mean, I'm out there in those rubber socks you slip on tennis shoes over, and you're waiting out there breaking ice, and the ice is cutting them. You finally just say, screw it. I'm going to stand here till my legs are numb, but I'm going to kill a bird, and it was 2 birds. And I remember, I think it was 97, I believe it was. They had Cabela's over in Kansas City, and we had got a flyer in the mail or something, 3 millimeter neoprene waders. And we were like, what the heck is this, man? Are you kidding me? Dude, we jump in the truck and drive 3 hours over there. We buy 3 millimeter neoprene waders, no insulation in the boots. And that was the best thing since sliced bread. And we got back and we're loving it, and then you get the 5, and then you get the up to 1,800, Thinsulate or something like that. Now it's crazy, but you've seen it growing. And then the spinning wing decoy, man, are you kidding me? Here I am in Kansas, Central Flyway, and that thing came out. And I don't know if you ever remember the original one, or if you ever had.
Oh, yeah.
I still got it. It was a half decoy cut in half with a black box on the bottom of it, with a 3/4 inch conduit female receiver, and some kind of weird rubber band on the side of it, man. And that was it, and you shove 2 wings in that thing. But you take that thing out to Milford Lake or Tuttle Creek Lake there in Kansas, or Cheyenne Bottoms, and you stick it in the mud, and it was magic. It was the craziest thing you ever seen. And now got them, and it just doesn't, the effect of the amount of gear that we have out there now is off the charts, and the money that's been shoved into this multi-billion-dollar industry is incredible. And the time and the energy and the research that these marketing guys have put into this stuff has just been incredible, with the amount of stuff that they turned out that's helped waterfowlers out there in certain ways. But I find myself sometimes, man, like this year, my nephew, he's 24, good guy. I cut his teeth into waterfowl hunting, and he's addicted to it. And he's out there with his pulsators, and he's out there with his little kickers, the little orange feet kicking around the water and stuff one day. And I said, you know what, Chris? I said, let's try this. Let me introduce you to the jerk cord. He's like, we talking? And I said, yeah, let's put all this battery operated stuff up, and let's just watch what these 6 ducks do on this string, And it was just amazing. It just blew his mind. I don't need all this technology to have an effective shoot and to have a great time. And that was really cool.
Yeah.
It's like, let's take an old bungee cord out of the back of the truck, and let's hook it up to this 1 pound weight, and let's tie this 550 cord to these decoys. And that was it. Let's pull on them, watch the motion, pull it in, let it go. Birds land, shoot them, you're done. And it just blew his mind, because here he is carrying around all this stuff, all this extra weight, having to worry about all these batteries being charged. And we just got right back to the basics, you know, and that was really, really cool. And it's important that we let guys know that, I mean, it doesn't show our age or anything, because, we're still out there doing it, but there's guys that are still, going back to the basics on a lot of this stuff, and they're being successful, without spending all the money on all that. I mean, I don't knock it, because I've got a garage full of 6-volt batteries. But
same, dude. And you were just down here, like I said, you said Montana, and it was kind of funny. I think I blew Ramsey's mind a little bit the 2 mornings that he hunted with me, especially the first morning. We got down the river,
right?
And he goes, "So where are you going to put spinners?" And I said, I don't use them. Yeah. And he's like, "What do you mean you don't use them?" And I said, I don't usually use them on the river.
Right.
With the amount of current in this fast river, my decoys are I got tons
dancing.
of movement,
They're
tons
dancing.
of movement.
Yeah.
And the rocky bottom, between the rocky bottom and then doing a floating one and the current messing with that, it's hard to use a spinner in most of those spots.
Sure.
I said, now Ramsey, if we were in a cornfield or a barley field,
Yeah.
I'd have 6 or 8 spinners out. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
that's different.
Right.
But
Yeah,
man, on the river, it's just funny. You know, getting back to the first time I ever saw a spinner, ever used one, same deal. Late 90s, early mid to late 90s.
Right.
They just kind of come out. And I remember hunting on a public managed marsh in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And there was a dude in the corner, and this guy didn't walk 200 yards from the parking lot. And he set up some decoys, put a spinner out.
Flip that switch.
Oh man. And
Yep.
every bird was like,
No.
right to
Exactly.
him all morning long.
Yeah. That's
And
exactly it.
I looked at my buddies and I was like, this is ridiculous.
What
And
the heck?
we stopped at the sporting goods store on the way home, and we all 3 pitched in and bought one.
Heck yeah.
We went back the next morning and shot 3-man limited birds over it.
Yeah.
And it was
No.
ridiculous. I mean,
It
how
was-
effective they were, to the point where guys were like,
That shouldn't even be legal.
it shouldn't be legal. It shouldn't be legal.
Right.
And we're killing too many birds. They're too effective. And the biologists, it was
I
funny
think we
because
all went through that phase. I
we
think
did.
the scientists
we
got
did.
it.
And the biologists and the old school guys that have been there and done that went, the birds will get used to it. Don't worry about it.
Watch what happens.
Birds will
in
get
5,
used to
6
it.
years. Yeah.
And it was within 5 years.
Yeah.
Now there's days when on the
Well, the
bright
stars line up on any day.
on those bright sunny days, and those birds are flying high, I'll run a pair of spinners on the river if I can get them in the bottom. We've got a buddy of mine's a guide here, and he fabricated wheel wells with brackets and a piece of pipe. It's about the only way we could do it.
Right.
And there's days when you got to have them. They make a huge difference. There's a lot of days when I think the spread without them sets you apart from everybody else.
You're right.
You know,
We were on the Missouri River, the other day, and my buddy runs 2 of them,
Right.
and, we were running them on the rivers. The birds were high. Now, if a bird came up and down the river within 500 yards of the boundaries of that river, he was sucked into it. I mean, there was no doubt about it. But, when we hit the fields, the geese don't like those mallard spinners for some
not
reason.
really. Yeah, not really.
He had them on remotes, and those geese started working. He shut them off. We didn't get to shoot a greenhead over the barley, but, the opportunity was there. But it's just different, scenarios provide different types of, unique situations that you use them in. But, getting back to that one that we used in Kansas years ago in the 90s, like you said, we turned that thing on, and there was probably half a dozen people around that marsh, and they all were at the boat ramp when we got back. They were like, look, I want to know what you had.
Yeah.
What the heck
Yeah.
you have that I don't have?
I'll never
And
forget
then it
that
just got
morning.
crazy after that, But I mean, it's been a lot of fun, man. It really has. It's been a journey. Waterfowl hunting's a passion of mine. It always has. And then when we got into the organization, and then a good friend of mine, Tim DeLarme, with the Alaska Outdoor Television Show, he came to our banquets, he introduced himself, and me and him hit it off. And he hit me one day and he said, hey, he goes, I film a lot of big game shows around Alaska. I've got 3 or 4 guys I work with. We do moose, we do goat, we do sheep, we do all this stuff. Would you be interested in helping host, because it doesn't seem to be too many people in Alaska that are as well versed in waterfowl as you are. And let's go out and let's maybe film a couple of shows. Let's talk about AWA, let's talk about who you are, and let's go out and kill some birds together on film. So we just kind of did. I think the first show we did, they're on YouTube, it was Alaska Outdoor Television, and, things like that. We were on the Outdoor Channel for a few years, and we came off of that. I think we're on Prime now, but he helped me and helped the organization. He wanted to do that. He saw how passionate we were with the organization. He said, I can help these guys. So let's help them promote AWA. Let's help, these guys get their message out. And man, it was huge, huge kudos to Tim and Alaska Outdoor Television Show, and, the networks and all that stuff for helping. But it just became natural. We'd go out through the camera on, you start doing that stuff, and you're like, you need me to act a certain way or do something. And no, man, just be yourself, have fun. You know, you're in your element already. I just want to capture it, you know, no matter who you're with. So we got very fortunate. We did some great shows on sea ducks. We did some great shows on some puddle ducks, and we went to Kodiak and some other things. But you know, it helped us with the organization. It helped us meet some really neat people that share the same passion, and it helped bridge, you know, a lot of friendships and a lot of networks together, you know, over time. So I was very fortunate for that, you know, to be a part of that. You know, we've talked about doing some more stuff in the future, but for right now, it's kind of on hold, you know, and if something comes up, you know, then we'll get out and do it again. You know, we were talking about maybe going to ADAC next year, you know, and doing a waterfowl caribou hunt out there or something like that. So it just kind of depends, you know, you start chasing brands and you start looking for sponsors and you start doing all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it's tough, man. You know what I'm saying? You're in the business, you know the deal. And it can get kind of rough at times, but things are going great for him. You know, things are going great for us, you know, and we're just going to keep, you know, we're just going to keep grinding it out, man. You know, with the organization, you know, with what we're doing in Alaska, with, you know, with waterfowl hunting, as far as promoting it, you know, and getting the youth involved and, you know, supporting the youth organizations and things like that. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's funny you talk about the TV show. That was my introduction to you.
Okay.
I was where I first saw you, and I think I saw it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, who is this guy? You know, I've spent some time in Alaska. I was, as you know, we've talked before. And so there's that, I have a passion for that place, and
Right.
to see what you're doing in a place that I really like, I was like, okay, got my attention. I want to watch this. And for people who haven't seen it, they can check it out on YouTube, because you guys have got some super cool episodes.
Yeah.
And it gives a glimpse into
Kind of what they can expect.
other world, a whole
Yeah.
other world. And yeah, and for guys that want to come up and do it, they can go and look and say, okay, they're hunting on Kodiak, they're doing this. I want to check this out. I want to see this. And that way I get an idea of what to expect. Because it's like you said, it's way, way different for the guy from Mississippi that's never been up there, that's going to come out and do something, you know, and we see it here. Friend of mine, Noah Miller, has Western Waterfowlers, and he gets guys from down south that they come out here specifically to shoot common golden eyes and Barrows golden eyes. Yeah. And then if they can get a bufflehead or something like that mixed in, but they come out here specifically for those. And you're like, well, you want to get in on a mallard hunt or, you know, shoot some hunt. And they're like, nah, we want those divers.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. But so guys can check that out and they can get an idea of what they're looking at. But yeah, man, that's the first time I saw you. But I want to circle back to something you said at the beginning of the podcast.
Sure.
About your swan. And you said you had to kind of and you posted this on social media the other day too. You had to kind of get your head wrapped around the idea of shooting a swan.
I did.
Tell us about that.
I mean, you know, when you look at not just the North America 41 with the Trumper and the Tundra, but I mean, you know, and I think a lot of people, you know, you're very sensitive, you know, when you're dealing with social media, the way me and you do, you know, and the different types of people that we know out there in the network. And, you know, you can post something, man. And I mean, you know, it can take a hard left on you real quick, you know, with a lot of the crazy stuff. But people that follow me, people that know me, know my passion's waterfowl. And that's, you know, that's my lifestyle. I love it. You know, I'm just trying to live the dream on that. But when I put in for the swan tag, I was on the fence. I was like, you know, the swan's such a majestic bird. It is what it is. It's just an iconic figure and such an iconic bird. And, you know, do I really want to go? Because I'd already accepted the fact that, you know, I'll shoot the North America 40. I don't have to shoot a swan. I don't ever have to shoot a swan. You know, I got my daughters telling me it's the spirit of some child or something. I mean, you know, you got all this, I mean, you know, all these different weird, it was funny. You know, I told her last night, I said, I'm fixing to slap that swan on the Traeger. You know, are you ready to dive into it? And she's like, no, it's the spirit of a child. I'm like, okay, that leaves more for me. You know, and the other daughter's like, you know, we're going to eat it. And I said, okay. But I mean, it's the whole ideology behind it, you know, and the fact that, you know, it's a swan, you know, and I just decided when my buddy told me, he said, look, man, you know, I know you've been on the fence with this thing, but it's got webbed feet. It makes noise like a duck. It's a waterfowl species. And if you do your research for the guys out there, there is literally hundreds of thousands of these birds migrating across North America. There is no shortage in trumpeters or tundras. There's a handful of states that you can draw tags and hunt them in. And I would suggest if anybody's interested or has any doubt, do your due diligence, do your research, because there are plenty of birds out there. The only thing that made a difference was I told my buddy, I said, look, I don't want to shoot one of a pair. That's it. If I can find a single bird, that's what I want to focus on. That was my criteria. And when we came up to that little pond, that little reservoir, and there was seven trumpeters and one tundra. And I said, if that bird gets up, that's the one I'm focusing on right there, because I didn't want to mess with any pairs. That was just my criteria. That's the criteria I set for myself. Somebody else might not do that, but that's what I had set for myself. And I shot that one tundra, and that was it. It was a beautiful shot, close shot, 25 yards on the wing. That's what I wanted. I wanted it on the wing. I wanted it close, because those are tough birds. I was shooting Boss 3-inch number 3s. I wasn't shooting BBs. I wasn't shooting 2s. And, but I'm shooting a real tight pattern, and I said, if that bird's under 35 yards, it's going to die. There's no doubt about it. So made a very selective shot on a very selective bird. I didn't want to cripple one. I didn't want to have to worry about that. As waterfowlers, we owe that to our species of any game that we hunt, regardless if it's big game or not, all the way down to the birds. So I made a very selective decision on that bird at 25 yards, made a very clean kill. And I was ecstatic about it, man. It was such a humbling experience. And my buddies were up on the levee. They saw it fall, they saw it fold, and walking over to that bird, when I shot my Emperor in 2017, when they came out with that, same experience, man. I mean, just extremely humbling experience. And you pick it up and you look at it and you hold it, and the feathers and the colors, and you try to capture as much as you can with photos and with pictures and with video. But we all know, whether it's the first deer we shot, the first buffalo, the first duck, the first teal, whatever it is, there's something there that grabs you and holds on to you about that first experience. And it was really humbling. It was great. And we got back, we took some great pics of it, took it back to the house, cleaned it up properly, processed it properly. I'm gonna do a shoulder mount on it. I've got a nice cabin, I've got a place, but I don't have a place to put a 7-foot wingspan. I just don't have it. I've got a bunch of other birds all over the place, and I said, I'm just gonna do a nice shoulder mount. I'm gonna do a nice frame picture, nice 8x10 picture. I'm gonna put a frame on there, and I'll pull the feather off a wing, and I'll hot glue it to the top of it, and I'll do a shoulder mount, and that'll be it. I do my own taxidermy. I always have. That helps me out a lot. It's a hobby, and that's what I'm gonna do with it. But it was a really neat experience. And then that was the target bird. Once the target bird was down, it was open season on some M&Ms and some Canadians. So we had a lot of fun with that. But those Montana mallards, man, I tell you, those birds got in my heart. I'm going back. I told Frank when we left the other day, I said, brother, when they show up, you call me, because I'm coming back down next month. If I got,
well, you get that close, you better give me a holler, because
I will.
If they've got birds, chances are we've got birds. And if we've
I'd
got
love
birds,
to share a bond with you.
Oh, there you go. Me too.
Yeah.
If we got birds, you holler and come on down.
Fly
man.
down there, brother. Whatever.
Come on down. Yeah, it'll be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. We'll
get you
stick you in a cornfield where they're landing on your face.
I just,
man.
That's something we don't get up here. To experience something like that is just, you see the videos, you watch the stories. These guys, you mentioned the other day on a podcast how well these guys are doing with cameras and social media stuff, and these guys are going out and filming these awesome shoots, and they're doing great things for the sport and great things for their companies and their guide businesses. But it's just, it's just incredible the amount of, birds these guys are getting to come into these fields that I'm seeing, and I'm like, man, what kind of an experience is that? To be laying in the cornfield in the blind, and you're talking about, the funnel effect, and they're just pouring in there. That, that would be a treat. That'd be a lot of fun. But
yeah, no, it is. It is. We get it occasionally here. We get it enough where you get good at it, but at the same time, it doesn't lose its luster, where
I don't think anybody can get tired of mallard cycloning down into the spread.
It's epic. You said something earlier. Where I grew up, is way far north for the lower 48. And I think your seasons up there were which way you're talking, growing up, it was a treat to get a fully plumed out Drake Mallard. Or those ducks were brown. Our season started the last like late September, and same thing. Everything was frozen by mid-November, and it was like by this time of year, you had to be hunting a river someplace.
Right.
So it's interesting. So being able to transition into something different, like mallard cycloning into a cornfield, or
that's just
different. It's just different.
Sitting on the river last week, I've never shot 7 greenheads, in a long time. I'm saying, since the 90s when I was back in Kansas, and to sit there on the Missouri River and see nothing but mallards. I mean, that was a treat, man. It really was. I mean, it got to the point to where, of all the birds I've got mounted and all the birds I've mounted myself, I don't have a greenhead in the house. That's it. I mean, that's one of the birds. I've killed hundreds of them, but that's just one I don't have. So, Frank's like, look, man, one of these birds you need to take back with you.
Yeah.
You need to put it on your wall. But we got to looking at him and stuff, and he said, you know what, just wait till next month. If you can't get back down here, then I'll save you one or something. But, just really, really nice to be able to have the opportunity to see that many birds, and that's, such a small environment, as far as 100-foot, 100-yard wide section of the Missouri River, and the amount of birds that we saw, and they're really not even there yet, so you can just imagine when they really get in there, and the stories that's been told about those barley fields and those cornfields. That's just got to be one heck of an experience, man.
Yeah, it can be pretty special. It can be pretty special. But when it happens, I'll get a hold of you. If you can make it down, we'll make it happen. But
love to. That'd be great.
Cool. Well, dude, this has been awesome. And I want to continue this face to face sometime. This would be great.
Let's do it. Let's get in the blind, spend some time together.
Heck yeah, man. I love it. Well, thank you so much for jumping on with us.
Thanks for having me.
We've been on almost 2 hours.
What?
And yeah, dude. Yeah. It's
no way.
It's 10:00 my time.
That's crazy. We'll let you get some sleep, brother.
Yeah, no worries.
If you've got any questions, or anybody out there, that of that might be interested in coming to Alaska to chase waterfowl, tell them to reach out to me, man. I mean, I'm not, I'll be willing to help anybody. I don't get any commission off of this stuff. I don't make anything off of this. I just want to help these guys be able to make the right decision, chasing the right species with the right outfitters. And if I can provide some insight and some education, help these guys with their due diligence, Todd, that's what I want to do.
I love it. Well, I'm gonna close this out with one question that I'm trying to remember to ask guests. If you could only hunt one bird one way for the rest of your life, what's it going to be?
Black Brant.
Yeah.
I love them. I tell you, man, Cold Bay, the Pacific Black Brant, the way those birds slide in the decoys and the way they fly, they are incredible to hunt. I mean, I've hunted birds all over the United States, man. But once I started going there, I just got addicted to it. We all did. There's nothing like hunting Pacific Black Brant. I mean, I've been on the East Coast last year and hunted Atlantic Brant. Fly the same, pretty much do the same thing. But the sheer numbers and the way those birds decoy and the sounds they make, it's beautiful, man. It is. It's an awesome sight.
Super cool. Super cool. Well, thank you, Hugh. I'll let you get back to your family. Appreciate it.
Yeah, take care of yourself. Stay in touch.
You too. Have a good one.
All right, buddy. Bye.